Tonight, a driver is on the run after allegedly hitting and killing a man riding a moped.
Police are looking for a blue SUV or minivan that drove off after the crash, and they think the front of it is pretty badly damaged. Chanu Her was at the scene all afternoon and has more on the police investigation.
Norfolk police were on scene for several hours investigating this. They had East Princess Anne shut down from Monticello all the way down to Church Street. It was a scene that caught the attention of all who live nearby and all who drove past.
It's like, wow, that could have been my brother.
Delphine Bailey heard about the crash, and when she found out the man riding the moped died, she couldn't help but be sad.
You know, if it was an illness, you can prepare for it, but a sudden death like this is pretty hard, especially at the holiday time.
East Princess Anne was shut down while investigators worked the scene. From a distance, what was left of the damaged moped could be spotted, but missing from the scene, the driver of the car and the blue SUV or minivan police are looking for. Norfolk police say it fled the scene while witnesses around helped the injured man on the moped.
I think that's very, disrespectful to one's life. You know, if you hit someone, stop and see what assistance you can offer them. You know, maybe you could save a life.
Police say the man was taken to the hospital, but died shortly after arrival. Investigators believe the car that hit the moped has heavy damage to the front, and anyone with information is asked to call police.
It's sad, and I feel for the family.
In Norfolk, Chanu Her, 13 News Now.
The name of the man who died has not been released. Police say they will release his name once the family has been notified. Meanwhile, anyone who saw anything is encouraged to call the crime line. A second fatal crash is under investigation tonight. It happened around 6:30 near Jefferson Avenue and Newport News Avenue in Newport News. Witnesses told police that someone on a motorcycle was speeding and was unable to avoid hitting a car. The motorcyclist died at a hospital. 2 people were in the car and they suffered minor injuries. An alleged drive-by shooting is under investigation in Hampton tonight. Police say 20-year-old Zaquan Scott was walking down Victoria Boulevard when a car came up from behind and someone opened fire. Scott died at a hospital. Police do not know the motive for this shooting.
The hotly contested race for the 94th House District seat will remain up in the air until after Christmas. State Board of Elections announced today that the tie between David Yancey and Shelley Simons will be resolved on December 27th. Here's the official word on what will happen. Pieces of paper with each candidate's name will be placed in old film canisters. Those canisters will go into a bowl, which will then be shaken up. Then a board member will pick one paper and that candidate will be declared the winner. After all of the counting and recounting, the race and the balance of power in the House of Delegates will be settled by chance.
The idea that whether that 50-50 balance was going to hinge on one person's vote, I mean, you just couldn't script a political drama any better than this.
Today, Democrat Shelley Simons tweeted about the tie, which came a day after she was declared the winner by 1 vote. She says she was stunned by yesterday's certification, adding it was unfair that we couldn't contest ballots, but they were allowed to. The race in the 94th district is all the more important because of the other close races in the state. A Republican candidate won a recount in Virginia's 28th House District. That's in the Fredericksburg area. Campaign officials say Republican Bob Thomas beat Democrat Joshua Cole by 73 votes. Again, control in the House of Delegates hinges on the race here in Hampton Roads. Depending on who wins, Republicans could maintain power by 1 seat or have to share the power with Democrats.
Today we learned the 15-year-old accused of shooting a Portsmouth police officer will be tried as an adult. Officer Angelina Boccolini fought back from her injuries and was released from the hospital last month. She was slightly emotional when walking into court today. It was the first time she came face to face with Patterson Jr., the teen accused of shooting her 5 times. She testified about the shooting. A judge certified 10 charges against Patterson, including attempted capital murder of a law enforcement officer. Tonight, that missing newborn we told you about in Houston, Texas, has been found safe, and a woman is in custody. The Amber Alert for a 6-week-old baby was issued after police found the baby's mother stabbed to death. Tonight, police say the suspect is accused of killing her friend and then kidnapping the baby, hoping to claim the child as her own. Authorities say Erica Miranda Alvarez recently miscarried her own baby. She was due to give birth next month and allegedly wanted to hide the miscarriage from her boyfriend.
And in this case, a theory was developed early on by our investigators about motive. If you recall, we talked about this is probably a woman that either lost a baby recently or that was desperate to have a child. This proved to be accurate.
Police say Miranda Alvarez knew the victim for about 5 years. Tonight, she is charged with capital murder in her friend's death, and the baby is with Child Protective Services.
Tonight, a coroner says all 58 victims of the mass shooting in Las Vegas were shot to death. The Clark County coroner says none of the victims killed back in October died from injuries they may have received trying to escape the massacre. They were all ruled homicides. The coroner also says the shooter, 64-year-old Stephen Paddock, died after he shot himself. It was Paddock's only wound. The autopsy findings were not released until all of the families had been notified. After days of debate, tonight Congress voted to approve a stopgap spending bill. It's another temporary bill to keep the government from shutting down. President Trump is expected to sign it. This time, agencies will be funded through January 19th. Lawmakers barely made a Friday midnight deadline. ABC's Kenneth Moten has more on the lawmakers' last-minute scramble before the holidays.
The House,
the motion is adopted,
and the Senate,
the motion to concur is agreed to,
with the last-minute votes to avoid a government shutdown.
We're ready to work together across the aisle to ensure there is no lapse in funding for critical services.
Facing a Friday deadline, GOP leaders propose to fund the government through January 19th.
We hope the future will be different, and our Republican friends realize their legislative and political goals are better served by bipartisanship and compromise rather than gridlock and strife.
The continuing resolution gives an extension to pay for things like flood insurance and intelligence surveillance. The Children's Health Insurance Program, CHIP, which provides health care for 9 million children, now funded through the end of March. The White House has indicated it's ready to back the short-term funding. President Trump tweeted, Democrats want a shutdown for the holidays in order to distract from the very popular just-passed tax cuts.
Newsbreak. The Republicans control the Congress, and they have the signature in the White House. They have the votes to keep government open.
Congress punting some thorny issues until the new year, like spending caps, health care, and protections for so-called dreamers. The House also approved an $81 billion emergency disaster relief package to help victims of this year's hurricanes and wildfires, but the Senate did not take up the bill before heading home for the holidays. Kenneth Moten, ABC News, Washington.
Today, President Trump paid a holiday visit to wounded service members at Walter Reed National Medical Center. The president calling them some of the bravest people anywhere in the world. During the visit, the president awarded the Purple Heart to a service member who was injured in an IED blast in Afghanistan. President Trump also met with other sick and injured service members from all branches of the armed forces.